Rizal entered Ateneo Municipal when he was barely 11 years old, 4 months after the execution of Gumbursa. His father decided not to send him at the Colegio de San Jose because of the unhappy experience his brother Pasiano had in the said school. Moreover, the mere mention of the institution made Don Francisco remember the unjust execution of Father Burgos, Pasiano's mentor. His father wanted to send Rizal to Letran but later on decided to have him enroll at Ateneo Municipal, formerly known as Escuela Pia. Besides, Ateneo at that time was the most prestigious college for boys owing to its great teachers. Rizal took the entrance examination at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran on June 10, 1872. Pasiano accompanied Rizal when he took the said exam, which covered reading, arithmetic, and Catholic doctrines. It is worth mentioning at this juncture that exams for incoming freshmen in the different colleges for boys were administered at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran, since the Dominican exercised the power of inspection and regulation over Ateneo at that time. After passing the qualification examination, Rizal sought admission at the Ateneo Municipal. At the outset, Rizal was refused entry into the institution for 2 reasons. Aside from being a late registrant, he was very frail and undersized for his age. Father Magin Fernando, the college registrar, was at very first firm in denying Rizal admission. Nonetheless, due to the intervention of Manuel Burgos, the college registrar finally admitted the young Jose. Jose did not use the surname Mercado when he enrolled at Ateneo. He registered as Jose Rizal because his original surname had rung a bell to the ears of authorities, then due to Pasiano's association with one of the leaders of the secularization movement, Father Burgos. Ateneo at that time offered a 6-year program that entitled a student to the academic title Bachillere en Artes. This academic program exposed students to 5 learning areas, namely Christian doctrine, languages, which are Spanish, Latin, Greek, and French, history and geography, which are world history and geography, and history of Spain and the Philippines, mathematics and sciences, which are arithmetic, geometry, trigonometry, mineralogy, chemistry, physics, botany, and zoology, and the classic disciplines, poetry, rhetoric, and philosophy. Aside from the regular secondary course offered, Ateneo offered the following vocational courses: agriculture, commerce, mechanics, and surveying. Compared with the other colleges, Ateneo prided itself in offering the best secondary education for boys. This was because it trained the character of every student through rigid discipline and religious instruction. Students were required to hear masses in the morning before the start of classes. Classes were usually begun and ended with prayers. To stimulate the spirit of competition among the students for excellence in academics, Athenian teachers enforced a program of dividing a class into 2 competing empires, the Romans and the Carthaginians. Students who belonged to the Roman Empire were the boarding students at Ateneo, while those at the Carthaginian Empire were non-boarding students. Both empires had their ranks and dignitaries, namely Emperor, the best scholar, followed by a tribune, decurion, centurion, and the standard bearer. These 2 empires competed as team through question and answers. The hosting and lowering of their respective banners indicate victory and defeat. Rizal understood the seriousness and severity of his studies. In order to excel, he made himself follow a daily timetable, which he rigidly observed. At the start, Rizal lagged behind his classmates, but in a month's time, he emerged as the emperor in his class, a title given to the brightest in the class. The method of instruction Rizal was subjected to at Ateneo was the Regius Studiorum, a system of indoctrination under tight and constant discipline with every incentive of compensation and reward. Essentially, the aforementioned method of indoctrination combined memory and understanding. Athenian education at that time pursued one aim, ad majorem Dei gloriam, or for the third glory of God. Thus, the ultimate task of Jesuit teachers was to make lifelong Catholics. The climax of secondary course centered on the philosophy of man as a creature of God. Students' life was therefore centered on the chapel, with membership in the religious confraternities as the highest level of extracurricular activities. Rizal studied at Ateneo from 1872 to 1877. His scholastic record shown below reveals his commendable academic performance as a secondary student. From 1872 to 1873, first year. Subject, Latin, excellent, Spanish, excellent, Greek, excellent. 1873 to 1874, second year. Spanish, excellent, Greek, excellent, World Geography, excellent. 1874 to 1875, third year. Latin, excellent, Spanish, excellent, World History, excellent. Arithmetic and Algebra, excellent, Greek, excellent. 1875 to 1876, fourth year. Rhetoric and Poetry, excellent. French, excellent. Geometry and Trigonometry, excellent. 1876 to 1877, fifth year. Philosophy 1, excellent. Philosophy 2, excellent. Mineralogy and Chemistry, excellent. Physics, excellent. Botany and Zoology, excellent. Rizal passed the oral examination on March 14, 1877. He graduated with the degree Bachillere in Artes with the highest academic honors from the foregoing scholastic records of Rizal. It is evident that he excelled in his academic studies during the entire duration of his stay at Ateneo. Rizal's academic triumph at Ateneo can be attributed to three factors, namely racial pride, monastic discipline, and seclusion of boarding school life. Owing to racial jealousy, he extraordinary efforts to prove to his Spanish classmate that a Filipino student can compete with them academically. The monastic discipline of competition inside the classroom triggered in him the motivation to outdo his classmate. In his daily learning activities designed to test students' memory and understanding of their lesson in the various curriculum areas. Moreover, owing to the seclusion of his boarding school life, he was able to devote more time to his studies. Rizal did not only devote his time to academic excellence, he became actively involved in extracurricular activities. He became a member and eventually an officer in the religious confraternities at Ateneo, Sodality of Our Lady, and Apostleship of Prayer. These religious confraternities were open only to students who demonstrated the highest degree of scholarship and leadership. He also joined the Academy of Spanish Literature and the Academy of Natural Sciences. These two academic societies were elite organizations for students who excelled in literature and the sciences. In addition to membership in religious confraternities and exclusive academic societies, Rizal honed his talent in literature. Through the guidance of Father Francisco Paula de Sanchez, he succeeded in developing his skills in poetry writing. To develop proficiency in Spanish, Rizal took special lessons at the convent school of Santa Isabel. His study of poetry resulted not only in the production of poems on religion, education, and childhood experiences. It elevated his feeling, patriotic sentiments, and exquisite sensitivity. He also took time to sharpen his skills in painting and sculpture. During his free time, Rizal took painting lessons under Agustin Saez and sculpture lessons under Romualdo de Jesus. As a result of the talent he had in fine arts, Rizal was able to carve the image of the Virgin Mary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. He also sustained the physical fitness training he started under his Tío Manuel. It was through his uncle that Rizal was able to learn gymnastics and fencing, which greatly helped him develop his weak and frail body. Owing to the perfection of his skill in literature, Rizal was able to produce a number of poems. The first poem he wrote as a student was entitled Mi Primera Inspiración, or My First Inspiration. This poem was dedicated by Rizal to his mother on the occasion of the latter's natal day, which according to some was allegedly written by his cousin. Another poem written by Rizal when he was a student at Ateneo was the poem entitled Un Recuerdo de mi Pueblo, or In Memory of My Town. This poem was written in 1876. The foregoing poem was his way of paying homage to his birthplace, Calamba. From this literary piece, it can be noted that Rizal never forgot the beauty and tranquility of his hometown, which in effect had inspired him to love nature and to have trust and confidence in the Almighty God. In the immersion of Rizal into the Athenian system of education became evident in the poem on religion and education he wrote. Notable among these poems were the following: Al Niño Jesus, to the child Jesus; La Alianza Intima entre Religion y la Buena Educación, the intimate alliance between religion and the good education; and por la educación recibe lustre en la patria. Through education, the country receives light. The poem El Niño Jesus was an ode written by Rizal during his student days when he was 14 years old. The poem was his expression of his devotion to Catholicism, which his mother implanted in his heart and was strengthened by his schooling at Ateneo. A close reading of the above poem, which revealed to us a lot of Rizal's ideas on education. First of all, Rizal compared education to a lighthouse, considering that it can guide people in their behaviors and action. From the poem, Rizal singled out the benefits that the country and its people can reap from a wise or prudent education. He believed that through education, the country could have a pool of educated youth who can steer it to progress. Moreover, through education, the youth at the country can be directed towards the path of virtue and rectitude. His message in the poem was very clear, that the people have to seek knowledge. They need to seek knowledge in order to become enlightened individuals who could be instrumental in elevating the country into a position of prestige and honor. Prudent education for Rizal, however, did not mean solely as an education for truth and knowledge and education for refinement. More importantly, he believed that it also had to focus on love for one's country. Prudent education therefore consists of three vital components, namely, education for truth and knowledge, education for refinement, and education for love of one's country. Another poem written by Rizal on education was the poem entitled La Alianza Íntima sobre Religión y la Buena Educación, or the intimate alliance between religion and good education. From the points cited above can be gleaned the influence of the Catholic education Rizal had at Ateneo. Here, Rizal stressed the importance of religion to education. For Rizal, education not centered on God cannot be considered true education. As implied from the poem, religion serves as a guide and nourishment to true education. Rizal was compared to the degree of Bachillere en Artes on March 23, 1877. From being a boy, Rizal was transformed into a matured individual, an individual basically Jesuit in form and orientation. For 5 years, Rizal was able to imbibe the Jesuit values of fairness, justice, and reason. As a consequence, his internalization of the aforementioned values of the Jesuit school, the quest of justice, equality, and dignity became his lifetime work.